Hi, everyone. Welcome back to another live session. As always, thank you so much for being here. Always good to be here. Always good to show up for the community. So, as people are jumping into the live stream, always want to just kind of throw out there as you're coming into the session. Um, the warm and fuzzies are saying hello, letting me know where you're visiting from, and just remembering that any and all questions and comments are welcome to. Please let me know that you can hear me, see me. It's always good for us creators to just know that the audience can that things are working accordingly, and it just doesn't matter how many of these you do, just always to say, "Hey, Jeff, it's working." "Hey, good morning." "Okay, awesome. We're we're live officially." So, always good to see that first comment come in. So, let's just spend a couple minutes getting warmed up. And Brad, thank you for the confirmation on a weekly basis. Always appreciate it. Appreciate both of you. Um, so let's dive in. And so, how do we want to get started? Let's start with going backwards as we always do. So, let's talk about yesterday's video. Um, if you were to, so many of the things that I talk about in my videos, if you go and Google them, you really won't find them anywhere. And the focus of yesterday's video was talking about specific product areas. And remember, like for the vast majority of interviews that we go into, we're talking about a specific product area, whether that's iPhones or Google Maps or NVIDIA chips or whatever it might be. And so as we're going into these product area interviews, the challenge is that the recruiter tells us we don't need expertise in those areas, and or at a smaller company, maybe your point of contact is the hiring manager. But the reality is that if you don't have some knowledge around the product area, it's going to be really difficult to be successful in a job interview. And I know that this is kind of like, well, hey, Jeff, this is super common sense, but here's where the application of it's really important. When we get on the hypothetical side and we have to talk about a specific product area, implementing those product area items into the conversation is going to be absolutely critical for your success. And it builds strong connectivity with your interviewer. So, what am I getting at? If you're going and interviewing for a job about Google Ads, but you don't ever mention things like Performance Max or shopping ads or YouTube ads, and everything's just generic, 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 you're not building connectivity with your audience. Check out that video. It's a short video, it's under 7 minutes. And as always, you can watch me on 2x. I'm low and slow, and that's very intentional. I like to speak slowly, communicate clearly, be thoughtful in my words and the words that I use. Okay, let's pivot and let's talk a little bit about just a few things that are going on in my world. And then, absolutely, I'm here to answer any questions. Everything's on the table. And then in our downtime, we'll talk about some of the reasons maybe you're not getting job interviews. So, if you can see here, which I'm sure you can in the banner, if you use the coupon code on the AI app, it's actually called a promo code interview. It's 20% off the AI tool and or the interview mastery course. I was really surprised that I had never used interview as a coupon or promo code before, but I guess I hadn't. So that one should work. We're getting tons of great feedback on the AI tool. The big piece to remember with the AI tools on the back end, we're running on ChatGPT, and then if ChatGPT ever goes down, we use Claude. And so, we do get some hiccups in the system when ChatGPT has some challenges, so we're always trying to navigate around that, and any and all feedback is super helpful. Still getting great feedback on the course, and of course, I'm still doing one-on-one interview, one-on-one negotiation coaching, and then one-on-one strategy sessions, which is resume, LinkedIn, networking, all that good stuff. So, let's dive in. Again, questions, comments, whatever's going on, whatever you're seeing happening in the world, like, let's bring it up. Let's chat about it today. We usually roll for about an hour, just depending on engagement and excitement. And let's get excited. Let's get engaged, and let's dive in. Thanks everybody for being here. Again, thanks for being here. Thank you, Brad. Awesome. You can see and hear me. You got live with those words. Okay, cool. Hey Liz, good to have you here. Hi from India. Thank you so much for joining late. I know it's late. I tried to push these a little bit earlier for my audience in India, but I know it's still incredibly late there. So thanks, I appreciate it. Hey, Jim, good morning. I can't stay because you have both staff, interviews, and a loop for a full-time role. I feel prepared thanks to practicing for the AI on the AI tool. Wish me luck and see you next week. Jim, good luck. You're gonna crush it. You have an amazing background, and I know that you're gonna do fantastic. So I don't want you to leave us, but leave us. Go do what you need to do to get stuff done. Yeah, and Jim, obviously, best of luck. And hey to Liz, and thank you so much to Jim and Liz and all the people who continually show up here week after week and keep the conversation engaged and going. As we all know, and again, part of this process of going live is transparency, right? And so the COVID years, and it's kind of funny because I talk about this with my buddy who's a business owner too. The COVID years where like everything in tech blew up. It was insane. We'd get 200 people in these live sessions. I couldn't even get to all the questions. That's not the current state of things. So I will push and continue to push throughout these lives, just for questions, comments, feedback, anything that you think is helpful. I think last week we went about 15 minutes in before we actually got a real question. So my goal is to not get to that length of time before we get some questions. But let's dive in a little bit. Let's talk about this focus area of why I'm not getting interviews, and I'll do breaks and I'll break it up when questions and comments come in to respond to them. The biggest thing that's happening with the why I'm not getting interviews is the defaulting to job applications, and it's like it's really, I know everybody who's on this live isn't maybe applying to jobs, but it's really important that we're not just applying. And so we've addressed this multiple times in this live recently. It continues to be like, I've applied to 100 jobs, I've applied to 500 jobs, I've applied to 1,000 jobs, and wearing applications as a badge of honor, well, it's not super beneficial because it's basically repeating the same action over and over and over again. And so we don't want to repeat that same action. We do want to apply to some jobs because it's low hanging fruit. When you apply, I want to strongly recommend when you do apply, that you go directly to the company website, just with the easy apply, applying on LinkedIn, through Indeed, through any of these third parties. Like, yeah, it's fine, but let's just go to the company website, confirm that that job is still open and apply there. It just increases your likelihood the tiniest bit with applications, so let's make that move a little bit smarter. Then it's like, on the second piece, we really gotta and I wanna be really transparent. I'm kinda reiterating this stuff for what I'm trying to do with my AI app and not do all the same kind of sales and marketing and outreach and switch it up. So, like, another move, and this is something that I've been doing quite a bit, we really gotta push on people who we think can help us. I push on my friends and my former colleagues quite a bit to help me. And for the most part, it doesn't go anywhere, but occasionally I'll get a little glimmer of hope here or there. I'll get a meeting here or there. And like, I have a meeting on Thursday, which is a referral from an old colleague. And she helped me out. She made the intro. The person seeing value in my AI tool is a B2B tool. And so we're meeting. And so when it comes to job interviews, we need to make sure that we're pressing on people who we know to help us. So what's the one sneaky trick? We've talked about this quite a bit, but like one sneaky trick to re-engage with people in your network who you know, you like, you've worked with them, you know the quality of their work, is to leave them a LinkedIn recommendation unsolicited, right? Just write a recommendation and say, here are the 5 things I love about Sue, and write the quick recommendation on Sue. You can always run it through Gemini, Claude, ChatGPT to clean it up. You can just present the ideas and say, hey, write a 5-sentence LinkedIn recommendation. But that's a great way to reconnect with old people, to start the conversation, do something nice for them up front, and that can lead to some referrals and you getting more interviews. Then networking. I think we're getting back to a place in 2024 where we need to start networking more in person again. There is a lot of the science behind the transfer of energy, and we won't go into that whole space now, but, like, doing everything behind a computer screen, and again, I'm kinda speaking to myself here, like, everything I've done has been online in this forum for so long now that I'm feeling like, "Wow, I just need to get back out and talk with people and engage with people." One of my sneaky, sneaky tricks, I don't know if using the phrasing "sneaky trick" is the best, but when you go to networking events, and this is again going back to why you're not getting interviews, when you go to networking events, um, there's some potentially a level of desperation, right? People there, they really need a job, they want a job, they're trying to sell themselves, pitch themselves, and I always recommend the opposite. You go into networking events and people ask about you and you say, "You know what? I just wanted to come to this event today or tonight and see how I could help other people." I guarantee that you will be the most remembered person at that networking event because really nobody else is taking on that type of strategy, that type of approach. So it's just another way we like give, 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 and we end up receiving. So I'm going to take a quick pause. Looks like a couple questions came in. So let's answer those. Um, Tom, if that's you, which I think it is, that's kind of crazy and very serendipitous because I was actually thinking about the, how you got me this morning. I was thinking about that football helmet, prank, which is obviously just between you and I, but if that is you, just confirm, but if it is, that would be awesome and very like, a very strong coincidence because I was thinking about you this morning. Hey, Jeff, just returned from SF and IO, and kept giving first attitude and showed interest without asking for everything. Net result, much more relaxed and better exchanges. Yes, Liz. Okay, cool. I'm glad that we're kind of feeding off of what I was just saying. There's believe it or not, when we're trying to get interviews and get a job, there's more pressure and stress on us when we go in, when we say, "I need to get those 10 LinkedIn recommendations. I need to do 3 of this or 5 of this," and setting goals and numbers. Like, setting goals and going in with a plan is great, but like Liz was speaking to, when we go in with a giving mindset and we're thinking, "Okay, I'm just gonna listen to these people, hear what's going on with them, see how I can help them," that natural giving default, it's just tremendously successful. Um, and yes, I think what Liz is speaking to is it will take a lot of pressure off because in those networking events, you have limited time. You're trying to work the room, you're trying to see who you can meet. People will sometimes take up quite a bit of your time. So there also is something in networking events about building in a really good transition statement. So something like you spend 5 minutes, you feel like that person's gonna take a lot of your time because you are following that giving first approach. You would just say to Jane, "Hey, Jane, really sorry to cut you off, but I do wanna take the time to meet with some other people." You hand Jane your phone and say, "Hey, let's get connected on LinkedIn." You pull up LinkedIn and have, Jane type her name in, or you can always have the scan code up, but I just literally anytime I meet with anybody and I'm interested in connecting with them, I just pull up LinkedIn, I hand them my phone, and I say, "Hey, type in your name." And then they send out the connection request, and then it's on them to accept the connection request coming from me. I have found that to be really successful. So yeah, I just always hand somebody my phone and have them type in their name. And I've been doing that for a few years now, and I really, really like that strategy. But yeah, Liz, so much again. We're getting interviews and networking and doing all these steps. It's stressful. It is stressful. So we want to just kind of chill out and make sure that like if we go in with that giving model, we can feel really good and it will reduce a lot of anxiety. Oh, it works. Awesome. Okay. Jeff, what is your take on talent mapping competency versus skill? And how can the industry get better at making a good match on both sides? Um, talent mapping competency versus skill. See, I might have you come back and, um and give me a little more context on this question. Um, we want to map talent, like, we want to map competencies, but we also wanna hire for overall skills, right? So, like, let's say I have Jane and Sue. Those are the 2 candidates, and they're both great, and maybe Sue has a little bit more straight competency, but I see way more skill in Jane for now, and in the future, I'm always gonna hire Jane. I don't need that person to have every single applicable skill. I need them to have the minimum qualifications and obviously, hopefully, some of the preferred qualifications, but I don't need them to have everything, to be successful. So, the number 1 default item that I would be looking for in every candidate in 2024 is communication skills, and not that that's ever not been a thing, right? It's always been a thing, but our communication skills and our ability to communicate, is going to leap by leaps and bounds, in the coming years, because a lot of items are gonna be automated, so the stronger communicators are the ones that are going to leverage automation and be able to keep their jobs because they are still able to communicate needs, goals, process, strategy to other people, not being done through technology. Will leverage technology, and so, I was a little long-winded, and I'm not sure it answered your question, but I hope it helps. Let's go on to your next item. I love that approach. I'm laid off, but I have HR networking events scheduled, and I will definitely use this approach. Sneaky it is, friends. Yeah, and again, I sneaky is kind of sneaky has a potentially negative connotation, and, like, it's sneaky good, right? Because let's go back to science and psychology, right? And this is the most interesting part about my coaching journey over the last 5.5 years is that the way I interact with people, it just kinda naturally defaults to this science and psychology. So what am I talking about? It's something we've talked about multiple times. The number one way to get other people to like you is to allow them to talk about themselves. People will positively reflect on you the more they've talked, the more they've spoken. So when we default to a listening mindset, a question mindset, those people are gonna like us a lot more, and so, again, because 'cause we're a little slow today, let's talk through one of my favorite stories, and I saw this story. This was probably very early in my business journey. I'll keep it really short, but basically, here's the story. Um, a guy, let's call him Bob, goes to a conference where he's gonna be a speaker, and he gets one of those huge badges, like, everybody knows, "Hey, you're a speaker, you're wearing this huge badge." Pulls up to the bar at the hotel, orders a drink, and then he sees, let's call him Dave, sitting at a table. And he has one of these big speaker badges on too. So he goes, he's like, "Hey, Dave, can I join you?" So sits down. Dave and Bob have dinner together, and gets to be pretty late. And Bob's like, "Hey, Dave, I got to take off. Like, see you tomorrow at the conference, whatever." So Bob's walking out of the hotel bar slash restaurant, and Dave goes running after him and he says, "Hey, Bob, you're the most interesting person, or I want to let you know you're the most interesting person I've ever spoken with." What did Bob do in that conversation with Dave? He only asked him questions about himself. And that example just resonated with me so much. Um, Bob didn't speak about himself at all. He just let Dave talk. And so again, when people talk, they like you more. It is a tip and tactic. And I just think it's interesting to listen to people, hear their stories, but obviously at a networking event, you have to figure out the kind cutoff where you just say, "I'm really hoping to meet multiple people today. Let's connect on LinkedIn. It's a good end note, and let's keep the conversation going, even if you may or may not keep the conversation going." It's a good option. Thanks for that. Hey, Jeff, thanks for Sharing a coupon for Mastery an app, do you have a 20% voucher for one-on-one practice interviews as well? Not at this time. So what I like to do is I like to discount my products, but the one-on-one time is not being discounted at this time. Thanks for asking, though. Hey, Jeff, experience versus certification, which one has more weightage, weighs more? I'll always take experience 100% of the time. I prefer experience now. Let me let me throw a curveball at you. Experience coupled with certification could be great. So, like, for example, let's say you worked at AWS for 3 years, and now you're considering a move to Azure or GCP, for example. Getting a certification in Azure or GCP would absolutely bolster your already great cloud experience. But if it's just straight up like you have no cloud experience and you're getting a GCP certification versus somebody who just has generic cloud experience, I'm gonna take the generic cloud experience every time, because it's just the hands-on stuff, there's no replacing it. But if you can do both, it's great, and I would never recommend against learning. Learning is so valuable, right? So anytime we can get a certification, read a book, take a course, do any of those things, 100%, we wanna do those things, right? Like, I love dealing with and operating in a world with people who have a learning mindset. We're so fortunate now to live in a world where, like, we can't even tap into 0.00001% of all the learning and opportunities out there are to learn. So anytime we're building our skill set, it's great, and I definitely would recommend, like, this goes back to the video I shot yesterday about product area knowledge, like, yeah, if I'm going into a product area interview in a product area that I don't know well, like Google Cloud, for example, getting a certification is absolutely gonna help you have greater success in the job interviews as well. Great question. Let me know if you have any questions based on my feedback. Okay. Hey, Jeff, with the increased adoption of AI and its increasing development, how do you see job interviewing process evolving in 2025 and beyond? Fantastic question. Great questions today. Thank you so much, everybody. I really think that um, as we're as we're looking at job interviewing in the future, I think we're probably only maybe a couple of years away from interviewing with AI completely, maybe 3 years away from interviewing completely with AI, and I know people maybe don't like that comment or don't agree with me or don't believe me, but I'd actually prefer interviewing with AI over interviewing with a human, and let's take it to that next step. I wanna interview with AI over a human because AI has less bias. We know that AI still has bias, like, let's call it what it is, right? But humans are tired, they're angry, they're hungover, they just got a work project that threw them for a loop, they had a fight with their significant other that morning, they're hungry, like, they're getting urgent emails and turn off their ping. All these million things are happening. So, like, Sue shows up for the interview. Sue is literally going to give the candidate a different experience 100 out of 100 times, where AI's consistency will be it'll just be much more consistent across the board. So I really see us interviewing and interacting with AI, and then AI will score the interview. It will come up with maybe like the top 3 candidates, not that any of this stuff doesn't already exist, it does, and then the hiring manager will conduct the final interview, and organizations will rely heavily, on AI to do all the job interviews, and that will save them time, probably statistically show that they're hiring better candidates, etcetera. So that's really the future, and as I develop my AI app, right now, the AI app is for people interviewing with humans, but that app would the app and the dev of that app would change quite a bit if that pivots over to interviewing with AI. So it's a really, really interesting, it's a really, really interesting, item to be thinking about as we think about the future state. And sorry, there is a really loud siren out there. Okay, cool. I think they're going past me. So I think it's also just interesting, like, we gotta continue to talk about AI and job replacement. The reality is that we've seen it enough now to know that companies really don't care about us, they care about the bottom line, and so the second automation comes in a certain role or jobs can be automated out, we just gotta protect ourselves, and what you're doing here by showing up and understanding some of the basics of networking and communication skills, you're already ahead of the game, but we gotta be continuing to talk about AI, and I think, obviously, my community, pretty heavy tech, like, pretty tapped into this, but when I go and I hang out with my friends who are non-tech, like, they're just they have no pulse on this stuff, and it concerns me because I don't think that they understand the job risk with AI because there's obviously significant job risk with AI. Awesome, glad that helped. Speaking of hungry, need to shoot, but great to see you. Thanks, Jeff. Awesome, Liz. Continue to show up, keep us updated on your journey, but actually let's have some fun. Let's talk about that food thing for a second. There was I am going to mess up this no, I'm not gonna mess it up that bad, but, like, there's a really, really famous study about judges and appeals, and this is an actual case study where, um, judges and appeals, like, the appeals going in front of courts, right before lunchtime, like, the likelihood of getting the appeal pushed through is slim to none, whereas after lunch, the likelihood of it getting pushed through went up much higher because the judges were hungry, they were agitated, they were in a bad mood, and then once they were fed, they felt better, and then they had a better mindset. It's crazy, but this is actually a study that happened. Okay. So, hi, Jeff. For an architect role in 2024, G has added GHA, which was a lot of common sense collaboration, trust, privacy, ethics, and culture questions. I've been told that GCA and Tech RRK will be round one. Okay. Prior to getting into round two, sales RRK and googliness and leadership interviews. Any suggestions on what to prioritize and how to approach round one and two? Okay. And I think this was something I believe the same question came up in the Slack group, definitely great to address it in a little bit more depth in the live, so thanks for showing up. Um, GHA is everywhere. You wanna get into the Google interviews now, you gotta, pass that upfront assessment. It's a Likert scale. Likert scale is strongly disagree, disagree, agree, strongly agree, so it's trying to get you to go one place or another. It's just morality, right? Like, you just have to have a strong opinion, take your time, but it's just about having a high moral standard, and the vast majority of people pass the GHA, no problem. So, um, the order of these things for an architect role, the sales RRK, the presentation interview, it definitely always comes last. I've seen them mess around with the GCA, RRK, G&L, any of those can come first. Um, the biggest thing about getting started is the easiest way to get started and preparing for any job interview is writing down your top 5 behavioral examples, top 5 or 10. You just wanna get those examples down on paper. That will start to get the juices flowing, start to get you into that interview mindset. Start with your behavioral answers, and then start to think about the categories for hypothetical questions. Like, what are common clarifying questions that an architect might ask? That might be about the relationship, their current technical infrastructure or setup, um, the type of resources, what types of technologies are they leveraging right now, et cetera. Then you're going to want to build your frameworks. Now, for client facing roles, the frameworks are pretty similar, thinking about things like goals and objectives, historical data, resources, risk, timeline, budget, all those good things. And then pre planning assumptions. So, you're pre planning assumptions of what you might face when working on client needs, internal engagements, etc. Start with the behavioral, then start to build some of the structure and organization around the CFAS method. And then for technical questions, it might be like something like, how does Netflix work in the cloud? Well, that's a really broad question. How does Netflix work in the cloud from a back-end technology perspective or a user perspective, right? So, like, this is where we can actually utilize CFAS for technical questions. We can clarify, we can say, "Hey, if I'm going to tackle this, I wanna focus in on these 3 items. Let's make some assumptions," and then you can solve. So, sometimes with straight technical questions, people dive in, but how does Netflix work in the cloud, for example? Interviewer Sue is gonna have a definitely a different approach to how she thinks about the answer to that question than Jane or Bob, etcetera. So, technical questions, I think sometimes people think they're wow, sorry, there's something going on out here. It's really loud. Sorry about that. I think that we think that like Jane, Sue, and Bob on technical questions are all going to answer them or want the same answer, but that's not the truth, right? So we need to just in the technical questions, don't take them as straight up. Dive in a little bit deeper. Hey Jeff, I've been an FTE for big tech companies for a long time, and I kept my LinkedIn as open to work, but recruiters contacting me are usually hiring for TVC. How can I show my filter to prefer FTE roles? Okay. So, um, you can put that in your LinkedIn background photo. So, to me, the number one most underutilized item on LinkedIn is the LinkedIn background photo, and boom, it's the top of your page. It's the first thing they see. So, I would put in that banner, I would put something like open to open to opportunities in San Francisco and remote, looking for FTE roles only, looking for X, Y, and Z role. Here's my email, here's my phone number. Obviously, you wanna add in your resume, which you can do by linking in a custom button or a custom link. You do have to have an upgraded LinkedIn to do that. But you can definitely put that you can even put that in your headline. You could put that as a comma after your last name, looking for FTE roles, like whatever you wanna put, but if you're sick of hearing about TVC roles, then you wanna really build that into your LinkedIn profile to say, "Hey, like, these are the types of roles I'm looking for." Um, I think that's really valuable. It's hard to I cannot emphasize enough that people who are looking for work are doing, in general, this isn't a poke at you, it's just a general poke, are doing a really, really, really poor job of leveraging LinkedIn. Like, that background photo should be exactly the type of roles you're looking for in your contact info if you feel comfortable sharing it. You should definitely have your resume attached. Your headline needs to be optimized. So I saw somebody do a post yesterday on LinkedIn and, it was one of those posts like, "Hey, I've tried everything. Here's my resume. Help me find a job." And they literally posted their resume as the picture, and in that resume picture, their resume had multiple mistakes. The formatting was all off and funky. They weren't using past tense verbs to start all their bullets. Like, it wasn't a great resume, and I was just thinking, "Wow, they just posted their resume." Then in their LinkedIn background photo, the words were cut off by their head, and it's like, I'm looking at all this stuff and I'm thinking, "Well, this person isn't getting interviews because of their lack of attention to detail." And that's a big piece of the resume, right? Like, you have to pay massive attention to the detail. You definitely do not need to hire me or a resume writer, but you do need to have a couple friends look at it. When we look at our resumes, we can't see the errors. We've looked a million times. So just pass it on to your significant other, a colleague, a friend, and say, like, "How is the formatting? How's the wording? Are my accomplishments clear? Is my day-to-day clear? Does it have good flow?" Like, just throw it out at somebody. If you go to practiceinterviews.com, I have a free resume template, that you can download. It doesn't require an email or anything. You can just download it. So definitely check that out if you're looking for a good format. It's less about following one specific format, you just wanna be really consistent. That's gonna be the most important thing. I hope that helps. I know that was long-winded. Taking longer on the answers. If we have less questions, I'm always gonna dive in a little bit deeper, and I hope it helps the community. How do you feel about the growth of big tech companies in the future? Do you think jobs will become more global or be more concentrated in local markets? Yeah, like, so much of this it's such a great question, thank you. I mean, so much of this is really, like, who's driving the RTO, return to office? Because mostly what I see, and this is I'm definitely stereotyping here, but mostly what I see is the big push to RTO, return to office, is based on people who are older, and they're driving it down from the top down. I think that, younger leadership is more open to remote work, so I think we need to continue to be super flexible. I think hybrid or fully remote, it totally works, and by the way, it depends on the person. I thrive in person. If I had the option of still if I was still working at Google and I had the option, I would go into the office every day. Not only because I'm a social butterfly and I get, like, so much energy and I'm super extroverted and I get so much energy off of people, I'd go in for the free gym, the free food, all that stuff, right? But, like, for me, I work better in the office, but a lot of people they don't wanna do the hour commute each way, like, they have kids, they have things and other priorities where they get more work done and they're more efficient working remote. Okay, that's part 1. Now part 2, I don't see growth for these tech companies. I actually see what will happen is what we will see over time is we will see a reduction in the workforce across all big tech companies. Jobs are gonna get automated, and these companies over time will have less employees, not more employees. And we're also moving to a small business economy. There's just gonna be tons and tons of people like me, solopreneurs who drive businesses through content, and content is king, and I think that with leveraging AI, like, companies don't need to be 100,000 employees anymore. You can do the same kind of work with a much smaller staff. Now, obviously, these big companies have built up this infrastructure, et cetera, but I think if you were to look at the trends of the total number of employees over time, maybe that's still going up, but we're really close to, I think, hitting the peak, and then we're like, we're going here, and then we're about to hit this downturn, because, like, big tech, let's take Google, for example. Like, they're not gonna keep hiring L3 and L4 software engineers. No way. I can get that perfect code with no bugs with AI. I'm gonna hire more senior level engineers who know how to play around with it, manipulate it. I'm not an engineer, clearly, as you can hear me speaking, but you're gonna lose a lot of those. I think there's gonna be lots of, like, the marketing positions, writing positions, those will be gone. All of recruiting and sourcing, that can all be automated, those will be gone, and so you will see ultimately these roles that have a ton of employees, just disappear overnight. So, something to think about, something to consider. Um, I hope that answers your question. If you have more items to talk through, please let me know. What can I assume if I've had panel interviews at Google, but have not heard from a recruiter in 3 plus weeks? Oh, man. This is why recruiting will be automated. You I've gotten kind of the 50-50 on the polls, and I'm like, "Would you rather work with a recruiter or work with AI?" Well, AI is not gonna ghost you, and that instantly will put AI above 50% of all experiences because the thing that people hate the most is getting ghosted. You have an incredibly unorganized recruiter, period. Anybody who's in process and has gone through any interviews, whether it's phone or the on-site round, is gonna hear from me within a max of 3 days, 3 business days, and then I'm gonna keep touching base with them once a week at a minimum as feedback's coming in. So, what you need to do is you need to reach out to them right now and say, "Hi, how are you? I hope you're doing fantastic. Wanted to check in and see if there's a status update on my interviews." You have to be incredibly gracious and incredibly kind, but it's incredibly unacceptable. to go 3 weeks. Anybody who goes 3 weeks without hearing back after an on-site interview, barring some sort of emergency that your recruiter had, less than 1%, in 99% of cases, you have an unorganized recruiter. This is somebody who doesn't know how to manage their inbox, their overall calendar, and definitely the applicant tracking system. And it's just honestly way too easy to follow up with candidates, and any excuse that they give you is an excuse. You should be getting that no update every Friday, which would be I think it's I think it's Scotty. My eyes aren't that great. So it's like, "Hey, Scotty, like, it's Friday. Just wanna let you know we're still waiting on interview feedback. I'll check in next week." Like, every recruiter should be doing that for every candidate in process every Friday, and it's so easy, and they just don't do it, and it's just lack of organizational skills. I am super, super tough on recruiters. I was and have been one for forever, and these organizational skills take little to no effort, and they're just not being trained appropriately. What's your approach when a contract agency recruiter has reached out for a TPM role that I'm not interested in? Pay is too low, level's too low, but I want to leverage their network. Let me go to the second question. But I want to leverage their network to search for director leadership role FTE in the tech industry. I'm at a FANG company currently, and I'm open to other types of industries too. 100%, just what you're saying. You want full transparency to say, "Thank you so much for sharing this technical program manager role. I'm at a point in my career where I'm really looking for a slightly higher leadership role, something at the director level role, or definitely like a senior manager of technical program management. I'd love to keep the door open for the future. If you have any of those types of roles now, or anybody on your team is working on those types of roles, I'd love to engage." So I don't mind the reach outs about like roles that aren't the right fit or even TVC roles, but yeah, it's gotta work in your favor, and it's gotta be obviously headed in the right direction, so graciousness and kindness will get you everywhere. People I always kinda try to articulate this in the easiest way I know how to. It's like if you look at everybody in your family, all your friends, all your current colleagues, like whoever, the people in your life who are super nice and gracious and kind, we go above and beyond for them. Like, I can think about my even, like, current group of friends and, like, some are nicer than others, and, like, that just is what it is, and but the ones who are really nice, the ones who go above and beyond, you just wanna reciprocate that so much. Same goes with recruiters. Be super gracious and kind, and you'll get everything you want. I hope that helps. Jeff, there are recruiters who defend their rights to ghost or brush off candidates. It's appalling. They should not be in the field of talent acquisition. All right, let's dive into this. This is a good one. So here's the thing. Um, and again, I like everything I say. Obviously, it's just all my opinion. And so, if every single organization across the globe in the entire world prioritized only one thing in the interview process, and specifically candidate experience, every single one of those companies would hire the best talent in the world. If the number one priority was when this candidate gets into the interview process, it's white glove, it's this. If everybody went into the interviews with psychological safety, maybe asking for something as simple as like, "Hey, what are the pronouns you like to use? Hey, interviewing's hard. I wanna set you up for success. Anything you find challenging in job interviews, so if you get stuck, I can help you." Like, the follow-ups to say like, "Hey, we appreciate you coming in," and, like and then following up with candidates. Like, if you created that magical candidate experience, it's gonna leave candidates feeling so good about your organization, and even if they don't get hired, you'll get referred, you'll get 5 stars on ratings and reviews, and so the default mode for all these organizations should be candidate experience. And I have found 0% of companies doing that. 0. Now there is a really cool company that my buddy Troy started called Guide. If you wanna check that out, it's like a candidate experience tool that integrates, with ATS systems. I think it's a really, really cool idea, and maybe his company is one of the few that would focus in on this item, but I just haven't seen any organizations saying, "Candidate experience is our number 1, and we don't care about anything else," and if they did, they'd hire the best talent in the world. It's crazy. It's very, very simple, but it's just overlooked. Hey, Ashley. How's it going? Thanks so much for all the great tips as always. As I pivot towards tech from academic related roles, I'm concerned the transferable tips I think are relevant are being overlooked. And I just don't have a big tech company name in my previous experience. Wondered if you had any ideas to best overcome this. Concern that my concern the transferable tips. Yeah, so like making sure when we go from academia to a little bit more corporate, I always think about this also for anybody who's served in the military and they're trying to take that great experience and transfer to corporate. Um, the more corporate speak you can use, the better. Definitely like terms that are used in academia, like we don't want to use those terms in the job interviews because it can be it can be a little bit confusing, to our audience, but the best way to overcome it, like, so there's really 2 pieces. If you're getting interviews, great, like, speak their language. If you're not getting interviews, it's really about leveraging your network and getting referred, and yeah, absolutely, like, having that big tech company in your background, it helps. The brand is priceless, and it's one of the reasons that I can continue to do this business and act in good faith and act in a high level of morality because I know that like the Googles and Metas and Apples and Microsofts and all these companies in the world haven't always done the right thing. But we're focused in on ourselves, right? And, like, for ourselves, getting that brand is absolutely priceless. So I do try to push people to say, "Hey, look at the value of a brand." And then, of course, these companies are gonna pay you a lot of money, which is also nice. I mean, we're not showing up for work for nothing, right? Like, we wanna have that passion and excitement and really desire, in the jobs, but we also wanna get paid for it. So, um, the only thing I can recommend is terms, using more corporate type terms, and then obviously, if you're struggling at all to get in, just as much as you can network as possible. I hope that helps. Hey, just a follow-up to the Google Recruiter question. To me, 3 weeks, no response is a response that we're not moving forward. Thoughts? No. No, that's not the case. I've seen this happen plenty of times where people end up getting the job. Um, we don't know, they might have gone on a 2-week vacation. You might have been first, right? You could have been the first person interviewed for that job, and therefore, they're just waiting to see how the other candidates play out. Um, nothing is not a terrible sign, and sometimes, again, this process is really slow. Sometimes it takes a few weeks to get interview feedback completed by an interviewer, even though that goes way outside of their criteria, it happens. So, um, yeah, just send a gracious and kind note. We gotta own it, but it's definitely not a rejection, okay? So, obviously, come back next week and let us know what happened. Yeah, I actually appreciate that. Recruiter did share with me that he liked me and thought I would be successful in the role, so a bit confused on the radio silence. Again, poor organizational skills. Really, that's all. We're gonna just chalk it up to poor organizational skill. It doesn't make them a bad person, but it means they're not gonna be as successful as counterparts in the job and, like, closing candidates and doing all the right things and not creating a good candidate experience, and the surveys are gonna hurt them, et cetera, and remember, like, when you get a survey from any company that sends you one, you have to be critical of your recruiters, like, waiting 3 weeks to hear back after you put in all that time and energy and effort, they have to feel the pain of the fact that they're not doing a good job. They're not gonna improve if we don't give them feedback. Hey, Jeff, thanks for all you do with your content. Thank you so much for showing up. Really appreciate everybody being here. It's fun. It's fun to chat about this stuff, and I'm obviously really trying to keep these lives going as things have been slow. And I was even chatting with my wife about it last night. I mean, it's Google had their hiring freeze a couple of years ago, and while I think I'm a more general coach, I don't look at myself as a Google coach. I do get a lot of people who are interested in getting into Google or big tech, and since that's happened, things have gotten a lot slower. It's allowed me to develop other and build other products and do that kind of stuff. But I appreciate everybody who shows up. So thanks for being here. Yeah, thanks, Ashley, and thanks for all your support on LinkedIn. I know you like a lot of the stuff that I put out there, and I appreciate it. Hey, Jeff, your videos and strategies are invaluable in my preparation. Awesome. I have my scheduled interview tomorrow for incident response roles. I have prepared with CFAS and STAR. Is there any specific area I should focus on? Okay, so remember with incident response, you're thinking about, incident response, like behavioral questions are behavioral questions, right? We're just going to use and force in our best examples as much as we can. But think about the types of questions that are going to happen with incident response, right? And you could use like an AI tool like mine to create those questions for you. You can use like Gemini, ChatGPT, or Claude to create those questions. On the CFAS side, what are you going to run into from incident response? Like clarifying questions might be, have we ever seen this type of incident before? Is this incident small, medium, or large? Like, am I the first person to find out about this incident, or this incident's being shared with me? Some of the items I might look at is I might look at the data, I might look at the risks, I might communicate with those critical stakeholders. That could be our framework. Our assumptions might be this is a brand new incident that we've never seen before, was communicated by a higher level stakeholder, and you need to go and do your research, blah, blah, blah. And then you dive into the solution. Obviously, you want to make that as specific as possible. But I hope that helps. Just whatever you can do today to prepare as much as possible is going to be the most important item. And I hope that helps. I've heard recruiters say, I like you and sounds like a good fit from a G couple times. I feel it's scripted. There is no script. I was never given a script in my time there. They do not give people scripts. I think they genuinely believe that you're a good fit and they like you. They're trying to send those positive vibes onto you. Does that mean that you'll get hired for the role or they'll be responsive or any of those other items? It doesn't. But there was no scripting that I was given in my entire time there. I can't say whether that's changed or not, but that's that's not been the default process from what I've seen. Thanks, Jeff. You're welcome. Sorry, I'm spilling all over myself here. Thanks. Yeah, thanks for chiming in. We appreciate it. I think your comments are helpful for the community for sure. I do have to drop. Thank you for your honest comments and suggestions. See you on LinkedIn. Awesome, Deborah. Thanks so much. I use ChatGPT as per your videos. Thank you. I created custom GPTs for RRK, Googliness, GCA, prepared CFAS transition. Anything else? It's hard to know. It's hard to know without speaking with you directly, right? So all I can say is continue to practice as much as you can. The transitions, I think it's really good that you focused in on the transitions. That really helps. It's kind of like the glue of CFAS. If we don't build in transition statements, they don't really understand what our approach is. And so it sounds like you've done the right things, but now is the time to double or triple down and just make sure you're getting all that prep done as quickly as you can, obviously. In my experience, I had a recommendation from a Google director, but I can't pass to the first interview. I don't know what I'm doing bad. If this happens, maybe I'm not what they need. So referrals don't always lead to interviews, but we need to make sure we're leaning and poking and pushing on those people appropriately. So if you have a recommendation, connection or a referral from a Google director and you don't get the job, ask them to do it again. And then if you don't get that job, ask them to do it again. And we just got to recognize, be like, look, you're my person. I got to push on you. I need your help. Like, I'm sorry to push. I'm so grateful. But I got to keep pushing because this is what my dream, this is what I want to do. And so referrals will wear them down over time, but we got to wear them down. And I wear down my people and they get to a point where they won't respond to me, and I'll go back to them again, right? Because I need to grow my business, and I know that the people I know have connections, and so I'll wear them down, right? And there are a couple people who I need to go yell at because I went above and beyond for them, and they're just not responding to my need for referrals, and they need help because I help them, right? And again, in a really kind and friendly and gracious way, but we need to lean on the people we know. So if you don't get in, yeah, it's probably that you weren't an ideal fit for that role, but we need to ask them and keep pushing and asking as many times as we can, even though I know it's annoying. I heard many times that Google moving jobs or staffing positions outside the USA. Does that mean Google expanding and more jobs are coming to Google or Google shrinking to cut costs? I think Google is in cost cutting measures. Um, they are moving jobs outside of the US, obviously, 'cause the US is really the most expensive market for tech in the world, like, especially when we talk about New York and the Bay. Those markets exceed any other market. There's some other markets across the world that pay pretty good, like getting into like Switzerland pays pretty good, Singapore pays pretty good, but there's a lot of markets Tel Aviv pays pretty good, but there's a lot of markets where even, like, you would expect tech to pay really good, like London or Dublin, and it's good, but it's not as good as some of those other markets. Um, but yeah, again, I think we see a shrinking of the US jobs being pushed to cheaper markets and then just an overall reduction in jobs as well. Thanks, Jeff. Lots of useful tips. Really love your content. I just purchased your interview mastery course. Amazing. I'm hoping to go through that and then try booking you for a one-to-one practice interview next week. Amazing. Um, I am obviously here to help. Still doing the coaching. I still absolutely love the coaching. There's so many insights that you get from working one-on-one with people, and obviously, like I built this. Let me throw this up here just in case anybody hasn't seen it. I built the AI tool so that there was a more affordable option to kinda have the Jeff experience, right? Like, the feedback, the joke that I'm getting from my clients, who also use the tool is they just kinda laugh and they're like, "Yep, the tool sounds exactly like you." So I wanted to bring in something into the market where it's like, um, you could come in and get similar coaching at a lower price point, but obviously nothing really replaces the one-on-one because 'cause you're getting that direct feedback, and I'm really fortunate. I'm approaching 3,000, one-on-one sessions, and since I started this coaching business, and so just all that opportunity to hear answers, I think and I believe that I continue to improve, my coaching skills, and the only way I can do that is to continue to chat with people like you. We'll keep asking. 20% discounts really help. Please, please extend to one-to-ones. I mean, it's something I'll consider, and I think it's like I wanna be really transparent. It's like I value my time, right? And so, um, again, this is like business speak. I love talking about business. Like, to discount my products is easier for me, but discounting my time is tougher. So it's definitely something I'll consider, though. It's something I get asked for every week, so definitely something I'll keep in mind. Thank you for that, and keep pushing. I like the push. I have no challenge ever with anybody asking for a discount. That's not a challenge, like, we should always be asking. Okay, I feel like we're hitting pretty good timing. Let me roll into my sum up, but obviously, if any additional questions come in, I'm more than happy to answer them. So throw this back up real quick. If you use the coupon code interview, 20% off the AI tool and or the interview mastery course today. Um, Still doing the one-on-one coaching, so that's interview coaching, negotiation coaching, and then I've built in strategy sessions. So that's going over your resume, LinkedIn, networking, overall job search strategy. It's really kind of a hybrid of whatever the client wants. If you like what I did today, smash that like button. If you've never subscribed, I go live 9 a.m. Pacific time every Tuesday and new original content every single Monday. Let's go back in and see if there's any additional comments in here. Okay, let's do this one. What's your approach to stand out when applying for a TPM role involving AI without actual AI experience? Are the certs from Google, Microsoft, Coursera actually useful? I have 12 plus years of experience as a TPM. Yeah, so one of the big things is like if it's a minimum qualification, it's probably gonna be pretty hard to get in the door with just a certification. Google has a ton of free AI certifications. Should you take those? 100%. Why wouldn't you? Especially if there's intrigue and interest in the space, it's something that I strongly recommend. So, yeah, absolutely 100% something you wanna consider. Uh, but just really trying to read into the job description. Any TPM that's gonna require AI, I would think they'd be looking for some hands-on experience, but I can't say for sure. Last follow-up question on my Google interview cycle stalling. For how long should I kindly follow up weekly with my recruiter? Um, Once a week. Yeah. If you don't hear back once a week, and then let's say you go like 2 to 3 more weeks without hearing back, if they just totally go dark on you and go cold on you, Google dash candidate dash support at google.com. You'll hear back in 24 hours or less from that recruiter. This is a huge poke. This is the email that we send out that goes to an overseas team that pokes your recruiter, and they're like, "What the hell are you doing? You gotta follow up with this candidate immediately." This is only if you don't hear back. I'd say reach out today, next Tuesday, the following Tuesday, and if you don't hear back, then you gotta use that email. Okay? You could say that certs, even introductory ones, help, but nothing beats thinking with interview mindset and coming and considering top 100 interview questions. But remember there's more of a theoretical aspect to AI, which is not just applicable to Gen AI, but traditional AI. Okay. After doing the right courses, I use a lot of deep learning content. Okay, awesome. From Andrew. We'll just leave that up for a second. Um, Definitely anybody who's providing guidance, like, let's highlight other people. This isn't just about, like, Jeff and, like, what I provide, like, let's highlight the other really talented people out there. I love any recommendations, anytime we can share any learnings, it's super valuable in these lives, whether you're in my life or anybody else's lives, so look up Andrew, everybody, if you're interested. Um, but, yeah, I think it's a mix of both, right? It's a mix of learning, certifications, and doing the hands-on stuff. Absolutely. Okay, let's take a deep breath. Let's pause for 1 second. Awesome, thanks for the thanks. Um, 'Kay, we're out of questions. I'm just gonna kinda sit in the moment. I think now is a good natural time to wrap things up. I appreciate everybody being here. Again, I'm gonna continue to go live at 9 a.m. Pacific time every Tuesday. I don't really have any vacations or anything coming up in the future. So we're just going to be rolling through these every single week. I appreciate the engagement so much. And I know we have some people who are coming in and asking a lot of questions. Great. I'm going to answer all those questions because I love the engagement. And I think all these questions are really insightful for everybody in the community. So I really appreciate it. Awesome. Thank you. Thank you. These lives in the community helps me keep me motivated to continue when things feel tough. Thank you so much for that context, Brad. It is the job market for this audience, for the types of roles we're talking about, is extremely, extremely tight and difficult. So we're here to help also. Practiceinterviews.com. If you haven't joined our Slack group, join our Slack group. Like, it's gotten pretty slow. but it's still a community that's there to help people. So if you have any trouble with the link, which some people do, just email me at Jeff at Practice Interviews if you have any trouble, and I'll send you a unique link. Okay. Thank you so much, everybody, for being here. Have a great day, and I will be back next week.